The story begins with a chilling silence hangs between the Duke and his Duchess, a palpable void where greetings once might have flourished but now only a cold formality remains. The marriage exists in nothing but its hollow shape, a rigid structure devoid of warmth or affection. The Duke, a man of sharp features and icy demeanor, turns his back on his wife, while she, adorned in heavy ornamentation that seems to weigh her down, gazes away with a stoic, painted expression. This visual separation underscores the profound emotional chasm that defines their union. The scene shifts abruptly to the harsh reality behind the aristocratic facade. In a dimly lit scullery, the Duchess, Lily, stands amidst broken crockery, her fine dress replaced by the tattered garb of a servant. Her sister-in-law, Martha, looms over her with a contorted expression of disdain, barking commands for Lily to accelerate her work. Martha aggressively reminds Lily to clean the dishes, her posture radiating hostility. Beside her stands Albina, the mother-in-law, whose face is twisted into a sneer as she berates Lily for eating, questioning how long the wretched woman intends to indulge herself. Albina insults Lily's competence, branding her as slow and useless. Lily, head bowed in submission, offers a deep apology to both Lady Albina and Lady Martha, addressing them with the reverence of a subordinate rather than a peer. Lily retreats from the kitchen, her shoulders slumped, while the insults of her in-laws continue to echo, branding her a worthless woman. She reflects on the wasted opportunity, lamenting that had she known the interruption was imminent, she would have consumed her meager meal with greater haste. This interrupted sustenance marks her first meal in an entire day, highlighting the severity of her deprivation. Despite the physical weakness causing her to tremble, she steels herself, determined not to lose her dignity or status. She gazes at her reflection in a window, seeing a disheveled woman with messy hair and dirt-stained clothes, and reaffirms her identity as a duchess to prevent her own collapse. However, she grimly acknowledges the disparity between her title and her appearance, realizing that any observer would struggle to believe she holds such a high rank. A flashback transports the narrative to a brighter past, depicting a younger Lily surrounded by her smiling parents and siblings. She introduces herself as the young wife of Duke Droll, but recalls a time when she was simply the eldest daughter of a poor baronial family, living a modest but joyous life. This tranquility shattered the day she received an unexpected marriage proposal from Lord Louis, the Duke of the Droll family. Her family reacted with shock and awe, noting that Lord Louis is a legendary knight with a reputation spanning the entire kingdom. Lily, however, harbored confusion, questioning why such a prominent figure would seek her hand. Her father, beaming with pride, attributed the offer to the good reputation of the Baron Arios family reaching the royal capital. He read the proposal aloud, which claimed the Droll family prioritized character over lineage and specifically desired the kind-hearted Lily. Lily remained skeptical, finding the situation strange given that the Duke's family had never met her. Yet, her father was overwhelmed with joy, reading further promises of support for their fief's management and the prioritization of purchasing their agricultural produce. He envisioned a significant improvement in the lives of their residents. Seeing her father's euphoric expression, Lily felt her resistance crumble, unable to refuse a proposal that brought him such happiness. Consequently, despite a vague sense of unease, she married Duke Droll without ever seeing the faces of the people she would soon live with. The Droll family assured her that her presence alone was sufficient, urging her not to worry, while her father lamented his inability to accompany her on the long journey to the capital. Returning to the present, 2 years have elapsed since that fateful decision. Lily now understands with painful clarity why the Droll family chose her. She was selected to be a nominal wife, a strategic placement to deflect the countless marriage proposals inundating Lord Louis. The family required a daughter from a weak, remote family, someone who loved her kin so deeply that she would endure any mistreatment rather than flee. Lily accepts this painful reality, believing it is better for her family to remain ignorant of her suffering. She imagines that knowing the truth would shatter their hearts, so she maintains the illusion of a happy life through fake letters. Within the Droll mansion, Lily finds herself utterly isolated. She possesses no allies, not her mother-in-law, not her sister-in-law, and not the servants. She occupies a station lower than a maid, despite bearing the title of Duchess. Even her own husband offers no sanctuary. Sudden chaos erupts in the attic as news breaks that Lord Louis has returned. The maids panic, revulsion evident on their faces as they look at Lily's grimy state. One maid, Glinda, is ordered to take Lily away immediately, labeling her appearance as filth. They rush to change her clothes, terrified that Louis will see her in her current condition. Maids forcefully drag and scrub her, the scene a flurry of motion and urgency. Lily finds a fleeting moment of solace in a bath, noting that the long campaign kept the Duke away, but his return finally grants her access to warm water. She cherishes this small luxury, stating that simply being allowed to bathe while Lord Louis is in the mansion makes her happy. However, she recognizes that this is the only time she gets to live, even partially, as a true duchess. The respite is short-lived as a maid commands her to wash quickly and exit immediately. Lily steps out of the bath, her expression somber, acknowledging that her real suffering is about to commence. The narrative reveals the cruel twist of her existence. As soon as she married, she was cast in the role of the evil woman. Lily stands before a mirror, now draped in an overly lavish dress and weighed down by excessive, gaudy jewelry. She laments her miserable appearance, recognizing the transformation forced upon her. Her mother-in-law and sister-in-law have systematically poisoned Lord Louis's mind with lies, portraying themselves as victims of Lily's malice. Louis, who never harbored an interest in marriage, needed little convincing to view his wife with disdain. Lily recalls that even from their first meeting his opinion was solidified. They slept in separate rooms, ate separate meals, and never exchanged a single conversation, leaving her no opportunity to clear her name. Resigned to her fate, Lily understands she has no choice but to stay. A divorce would sever the financial support her family relies on. Thus, she resolves to endure this wretched existence until her life reaches its end. The sound of footsteps heralds the arrival of the Duke. Lord Louis appears, his presence commanding and radiant, unchanged by his time away. He walks past Lily without a glance, effectively rendering her invisible. Lily observes the scene with a heavy heart. To the servants and his family, she is the villain who treats the staff poorly when the Duke is absent. Conversely, Albina and Martha transform into a loving mother and sister in Louis's presence. The servants corroborate these falsehoods, creating an impenetrable web of deceit that Louis accepts as truth. Lily stands silently as they welcome him back, her internal monologue crying out that it is all lies. The dynamic shifts as Lily sits alone, sipping tea, grateful for the solitude that follows the initial encounter. She overhears the maids discussing shocking news. Lord Louis is heading to the witches' forest immediately, despite having just returned yesterday. He received a direct order from the royal palace to search for missing persons, leaving him no choice but to depart again. The witches' forest is a place steeped in dark legends. Rumors swirl about a witch who has lived there for centuries, erasing anyone she dislikes. Although history claims all witches were eradicated during the conflict against the Great Witch who betrayed the kingdom, whispers persist. It is said that magic existed until a few centuries ago, and now ominous disappearances plague the forest. Terrifyingly, some believe the being residing there is the Great Witch herself. A maid interrupts Lily's thoughts, informing her that once Lord Louis departs, she will be banished back to the attic room. Until that moment, she is confined to her current quarters. Lily accepts this directive, but internally, a wave of relief washes over her. While she worries for Louis's safety in the dangerous forest, his departure means she won't have to wear the heavy, annoying makeup or maintain the evil woman facade today. She celebrates this small victory. 5 days pass. Lily is back in her servant attire, watering plants in the garden. Lord Louis is scheduled to return temporarily today. Because of his imminent arrival, she was permitted to bathe yesterday, leaving her feeling refreshed for the first time in ages. She dreads the inevitable return to her painted disguise. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes catches her attention. She peers into the foliage and spots a small, white ball of fur. The creature hops out, and Lily is instantly captivated by its beauty. It is a small, rotund animal, fluffy and undeniably cute. She gently picks it up, wondering how such an animal ended up in the garden and struggling to identify its species. As she examines it closer, a startling realization strikes her. The creature's silver fur perfectly matches the shade of Lord Louis's hair. Furthermore, it wears an earring identical to the Duke's, and its eyes shimmer with the same distinctive emerald hue. Lily tries to dismiss the impossible thought, asking herself if it could be Lord Louis. She attempts to rationalize it as a mere coincidence, telling herself that such a transformation is impossible. However, the creature suddenly reacts to her internal questioning. It speaks, demanding to know how she figured it out. Startled by the talking animal, Lily drops it in shock. The creature lands with a soft thud and complains about the sudden drop. Lily, overwhelmed, questions her own sanity, wondering why she is speaking to an animal and calling herself foolish. But the creature persists, asking why she is talking, confirming its sentience. It explains that she can hear it because she was able to see its true form. Lily, now kneeling on the grass eye to eye with the small beast, asks directly if he is Lord Lewis. The animal confirms with a simple, "Yes, it's me." Lily covers her mouth in disbelief, struggling to process that this tiny, adorable creature is actually her imposing husband. The absurdity of the situation leaves her stunned as she stares at the magical transformation before her. Lily stares in disbelief at the creature before her, struggling to comprehend the impossible reality that this small, silver-furred animal is her husband, Lord Lewis. The creature confirms his identity, explaining that the transformation is the result of the witch's curse. He recounts the harrowing event. Upon entering the forest, the witch appeared suddenly, perceiving his presence as an invasion. In the blink of an eye, she transmuted his form and cast him away. Lewis explains the sinister mechanics of his affliction. The curse renders him mute to the world, allowing him to speak only to those who pierce the illusion and recognize his true identity. To all others, his presence goes entirely unnoticed, or he appears as a mere beast. He surmises that his missing soldiers suffered the same fate, vanishing into animal forms within the forest. Lily processes this information, realizing that her recognition of him bridged the magical gap. When Lewis asks how she knew, she explains it was a vague feeling initially, solidified by the observation that his fur and eyes matched the exact silver and emerald hues of the Duke. Lewis admits that without her intervention, he likely would have perished in the wild, unable to even contemplate breaking the curse. He asks if she knows a cure, but she denies any knowledge of magic. Realizing he cannot contact the palace himself, Lewis proposes a test. He will attempt to show himself to his mother, Lady Albina. He reasons that if she can recognize her own son, she can mobilize the knights to investigate. If she fails to see him, he will have no choice but to rely entirely on Lily. The plan executes with disastrous results. Lily places the transformed Duke before Lady Albina, hoping for a spark of recognition. Instead, Albina recoils in horror, seeing only a filthy rat. She shrieks for the servants to catch and exterminate the vermin, forcing Lily to snatch Lewis from the ground and flee to safety. Safe in the garden, Lewis trembles, devastated that his own mother and sister failed to recognize him, while a simple maid succeeded. He questions Lily, noting she appears new to the household, yet identified him swiftly. Lily inwardly panics, realizing he still does not know she is his wife. She deflects, and Lewis admits he only ever showed her his arrogant side, yet is grateful she saw past the form. Lily, maintaining her disguise, invites him to her room for lunch. Lewis follows her, expecting a servant's quarters, but is led to a desolate, dusty attic. He surveys the room in shock, questioning why she lives in what appears to be a punishment cell rather than a proper room on the first floor. He also observes that her clothing is not a standard maid's uniform. Lily lies, claiming she works odd jobs, and has a unique situation, concealing her identity as the Duchess. She serves him a humble meal of rock-hard bread and soup. Lewis eyes the food skeptically, asking if the bread is even edible. As he gnaws on the tasteless food, Lily watches him, fighting the urge to squeal at his adorable, rotund form. He catches her staring and questions her gaze, forcing her to look away and feign indifference. A sudden commotion downstairs interrupts their meal. Lily rises to investigate, and Lewis insists on accompanying her despite the danger of being captured. They overhear a group of knights reporting to the family that Commander Lewis vanished into sudden darkness and is now officially considered missing. Lily sees a golden opportunity to reveal the truth to the knights, hoping they will listen where Albina failed. She steps forward to speak, but as she attempts to articulate that the animal is Lord Lewis, her words warp into unintelligible gibberish. The curse actively censors her speech, twisting her warning into nonsense. The maids and knights look at her with confusion and disdain, asking if she has lost her mind. Defeated, Lily retreats to the attic, realizing the curse prevents anyone from speaking about it or obtaining information from third parties. She concludes that Lewis must discover the solution himself. Upon returning, she apologizes to Lewis for her lateness and explains the situation. She describes the knight, Colin, who reported him missing, but admits she could not convey the message due to the curse scrambling her words. Lewis accepts this, realizing the severity of the witch's magic. He then asks for her name, expressing a desire to become closer to her once the misunderstanding is cleared, noting that she treats him with a kindness he never expected. He reflects on how different she is from the Lord Lewis he knows himself to be. Lily hesitates, her heart pounding. She debates revealing her true identity as his wife but fears that doing so would cause him to revert to his cold, distant demeanor. Desperate to preserve the warmth of their current interaction, she gives him a false name, Leah. Louis accepts this, expressing pleasure at meeting Leah properly. Lily feels a pang of guilt but prioritizes the enjoyment of talking with him over the truth. The intimacy is shattered when a maid barges into the attic without knocking. She aggressively scolds Lily for slacking off, accusing her of spying and wasting time. Louis watches in shock as the maid speaks to Lily with utter contempt, questioning if this is how colleagues interact. Lily apologizes quickly, promising to get back to work. Once the maid leaves, Louis asks if that is the usual attitude she faces, even from the head maid. Lily admits she never thought to complain and tries to act indifferent. Louis is furious on her behalf, asking why she accepts such treatment. Lily smiles sadly, explaining she is used to it. Internally, she acknowledges that the insults of failure were originally directed at her as the Duchess, not as a maid, but she keeps this from him. Louis remains oblivious to the double meaning, frustrated by her acceptance of abuse. Suddenly, Lady Albina summons Lily. Louis follows stealthily to observe the interaction. In the drawing room, Albina confronts Lily with venomous accusations. She claims Lily was eavesdropping and is secretly happy that Louis has disappeared. Albina shouts that Lily is a liar who seems unaffected by the tragedy. Lily defends herself, stating she was in shock, but Albina cuts her off. The matriarch reveals her true colors, threatening that even if Louis never returns, Lily will never control the house. She declares they will kick Lily out and find a husband for Martha to take over the Duke's title and wealth. Lily listens, horrified not by the threats to herself, but by the realization that Louis's family cares nothing for him. Upon learning of his disappearance, their first thought was of money and succession, not his safety. Albina commands Lily to cease wandering the mansion, accusing her of potentially stealing out of revenge, and orders her to stay in her room and sew. Lily accepts the order with a simple, understood, and leaves. Returning to the attic, Lily finds Louis fast asleep on the table. The sight of him, curled up and peaceful, instantly washes away her negative emotions. She considers moving him to the bed but realizes it is as stiff as the floor. As she watches her husband sleep, a sudden idea crosses her mind, sparking a new possibility in the midst of their despair. In the dim, dusty light of the attic, Lord Louis stirs from his slumber, his small, furry form shifting on the makeshift bed Lily has fashioned for him. He apologizes for dozing off, but his attention is quickly captured by the soft cushion beneath him. Lily confirms that she created this small sanctuary for him, apologizing for the discomfort of his previous sleeping arrangements and offering him the use of this new bed from now on. Louis, touched by the gesture, asks if Leah made it specifically for him. Lily watches him, her heart swelling with an unfamiliar warmth, noting that this is the first time anyone in the Droll household has thanked her since her arrival. She chastises herself internally for being such a simple girl, feeling overjoyed merely by hearing words of gratitude. She dismisses his thanks modestly and turns to leave, announcing her intention to fetch dinner. Louis calls out to her, repeating his thanks and using the name Leah, solidifying the false identity she has assumed. Moments later, Lily returns, but her hands are empty, and her expression is guarded. Louis immediately notices the absence of food and questions her. Lily apologizes, admitting there is no dinner for her tonight. When Louis demands to know why, she explains that Lady Albina is still harboring anger over the earlier incident with the rat, and has punished her by withholding sustenance. Louis is incensed, declaring that there is no reason for her to be treated with such cruelty. He asks if she has been denied food before, and Lily attempts to soothe his rage by claiming she is used to it. This admission only shocks him further. He realizes that his presence earlier caused her to miss lunch, and now she is being starved for dinner as well. He stares at her in disbelief, asking if she is truly saying she has adapted to such injustice. Seeking to understand the depths of this household's depravity, Louis asks Leah if she has ever spoken to his wife, Lily. He confesses that he never imagined the servants were treated so cruelly and asserts that if he could only inform his mother, she would rectify the situation immediately. Lily's heart skips a beat at his blindness. She steels herself and reveals the harsh truth. His mother is the very architect of all this suffering. Louis, taken aback, asks if Lady Albina said something hurtful to her. Lily elaborates, explaining that she has heard rumors of Lady Albina mistreating servants daily, firing them for no reason, assigning impossible tasks, and even pouring water over their heads. She adds that the one physically carrying out these acts is often Lady Martha, and that the two of them conspire to cover up their abuse, making the situation truly troublesome. Emboldened by the conversation, Lily asks the question that has plagued her existence. Why does he not divorce his wife? Louis hesitates, explaining that he cannot do without a wife at the moment and finding a suitable replacement would be time-consuming. Furthermore, he reveals that his mother believes it is best to give Lily another chance and observe the situation for a while. He then turns the interrogation back on Leah, asking if she has been harassed by Lady Lily. Lily quickly denies this, stating that Lady Lily has done nothing to her. Louis deduces that the one who deprived her of dinner was not his wife, but he still harbors suspicion. Lily realizes with a pang of complexity that Lord Louis views her true self as a wicked woman, so his doubts are unsurprising. Louis probes further, asking if she ever confronted Lady Lily directly about her actions. Lily denies this, explaining that his mother and sister instructed her to leave all matters concerning his wife to them. Louis then drops a bombshell. He claims that his wife said she absolutely cannot stand him. Lily is internally screaming in shock, wondering if he thinks she actually said those words. Louis continues, stating that she cannot even bear to be near him or greet him. Lily defends her alter ego, arguing that if Lady Lily ignores him, it is obvious she does so reluctantly because his mother forced her to. She insists that if his wife truly hated him, she wouldn't act that way. Louis counters by pointing out that she doesn't welcome him when he returns. Lily tries to explain the hysteria of his mother and sister, noting that yesterday, when they saw him in his animal form, they screamed loudly. She realizes that Lady Albina has successfully painted her as the villain while elevating herself. She confides in Louis that when he is absent, the two women yell at her with sharp voices and shower her with insults, revealing a side of them she had never seen before. Louis struggles to reconcile this image with the family he knows. He insists that his mother and sister have always been kind to him. He explains that thanks to them, he was able to focus on his work at the Night Academy without worry. He reveals that upon his father's sudden death when he was 11 he was supposed to be the heir, but his mother took on the responsibilities of the ducal family almost entirely on her own so he could pursue knighthood. He describes his mother as a strong woman with exceptional skills. As for his sister, she always supported him throughout his studies, giving him strength. Louis admits he feels like a burden to them because he hasn't done anything in return. Lily listens, understanding now that his deep gratitude and overwhelming guilt are the reasons he trusts them so easily. However, she worries about what will happen if he ever discovers the truth about their deceptive nature. The narrative shifts to a recollection of the cookie incident. Lady Martha commands Lily to embroider a handkerchief quickly for Louis, scolding her for not asking about his well-being and calling her a cold woman. Later, the maid Glinda approaches Lily, asking if she found Louis. When Lily says no, Glinda gleefully informs her that until Louis returns, she will receive no food. Lily accepts this for herself but argues that not providing food for Lord Louis is unacceptable. Glinda then presents a bag of cookies, claiming she baked them herself since Lily didn't have breakfast. Lily accepts them warily. In the present, Louis, who witnessed this as a hamster, expresses suspicion about why they would give her cookies while depriving her of proper food, and why it was specifically Glinda. He recalls feeling that something was wrong and that he should leave quickly. Back in the flashback, Lily prepares to eat the cookies, feeling there is a hidden motive but unwilling to waste food. Just as she is about to take a bite, Louis, in his hamster form, intervenes. He realizes it is a trap. In the present, Lily apologizes to my lord for the incident, but Louis corrects the record. He reveals that the food was spoiled from the start. He accuses the staff of disrespecting food and trying to feed Leah something rotten. Louis explains that he did nothing but make the maid taste the cookies herself. Lily is stunned, asking if he carried the cookies with him the whole time. Louis admits he can't scold anyone properly in his current form, so he took direct action. Lily bursts into laughter, imagining his small frame jumping high enough to force the maid to eat the cookie. Louis is annoyed by her laughter and vows to punish the maid when he returns to his original form. Lily eventually eats her meager lunch, thanking Louis for ensuring she at least had that much. She reflects that even if she were recognized as his wife, he likely wouldn't have allowed her to eat spoiled food either. She feels an urge to pat his head but restrains herself, remembering her station as a maid. As she watches him eat, seeing his kindness, she wonders if they could live together as a happy couple if the misunderstanding were cleared and he returned to normal. Their conversation turns to breaking the curse. Lily suggests they might find books about witches in the royal library. She notes that technically, as the Duke's wife, she could enter, but commoners like Ulia are forbidden. Furthermore, she is currently confined to the mansion. Lily then proposes asking her sister, Martha, for help, claiming Martha is kind-hearted and would definitely go for Leah's sake. Louis, having seen glimpses of the truth, thinks to himself that this plan is doomed to fail completely. Louis reflects on his situation. He acknowledges that while his mother and sister failed to recognize him, this strange maid, Leah, identified him instantly. He notes that Leah treated him kindly and cared for him despite his unfamiliar and transformed appearance. He feels a growing desire to do something for her, questioning why she is treated so cruelly when he has never heard of conflicts among the servants. He recalls the rumors that his wife, Lily, mistreats the staff and wonders if his mother and sister know about Leah's suffering. His thoughts drift to his infamous wife, Lily. He views their marriage as nothing more than an arrangement based on mutual interests. He believed she despised him so much that she wished to be completely away from him. He decided to stay away, accepting a cold, purely formal relationship. But now, looking at Leah, a dangerous thought crosses his mind: what if Leah were my wife? He wonders how he would feel in that reality. He quickly chastises himself, asking what he is thinking. He realizes he has never actually seen Lily properly, as she doesn't seem to leave the mansion, and the house is always so quiet. Yet, according to his mother and sister, Lily's life is miserable, as if she doesn't exist at all. Suddenly, the door opens. A figure enters, the sound of footsteps heavy in the quiet attic. It is Martha. She looks down, her eyes landing on Louis. Her expression twists into disgust as she sneers, "What is this filth?" She moves to strike or discard him. Louis, witnessing the sheer malice in her demeanor, is struck by a wave of disbelief. He questions if this person is really his sister. The slam of the door or the impact of her action leaves him reeling, a strange and terrible feeling welling up inside him as the image of his benevolent family begins to crack. Lily dismisses the fleeting notion of seeking assistance from her sister-in-law, Martha, recognizing the absurdity of the idea. The sheer impossibility of the request weighs on her. Asking Martha for help breaking a curse would likely result in physical retaliation rather than aid. She resolves to find another way, clinging to the hope that the royal library might hold the answers within its vast collection of books on witchcraft. However, the immediate reality of her servitude interrupts these plans. She carries a vase of fresh flowers, navigating the corridors to fulfill her duties. Arriving at Martha's door, Lily knocks softly, announcing her presence. Silence answers her. She enters the room, the air still and unoccupied. A sense of relief washes over her as she places the vase on the table as instructed, arranging the blooms with practiced care. She adjusts the position of the vase, ensuring it sits perfectly, before retreating from the room with haste. The urgency to escape before Martha returns drives her movements, her footsteps quick and light against the floor. Back in the safety of the corridor, Lily encounters the small, furry form of Lord Louis. He appears despondent, his usual energy drained. She apologizes for her lateness, explaining that she was detained by her tasks. Louis remains silent, his demeanor radiating a profound loss of enthusiasm. Lily observes his slump, noting that even if she were to probe, he seems too dispirited to share his burden. She attributes his mood to the encounter with Martha, but decides not to press the issue, sensing that silence is the kinder comfort. Seeking solace in her own work, Lily settles into a chair and retrieves her embroidery hoop. She focuses on the fabric, the needle weaving through the cloth with rhythmic precision. She finds a meditative peace in the activity, the distraction of the developing pattern allowing her to escape the harshness of her reality. She admits to herself that she loves embroidery. Watching the design slowly take shape instills a wonderful feeling of creation and control. Today's task is a handkerchief, a delicate piece she secretly intends for Lord Louis. A shadow of doubt crosses her mind as she acknowledges the likelihood that he would never accept such a gift from her, yet she persists, driven by a quiet, unyielding affection. Louis, having recovered slightly, approaches her. He observes the fabric, his sharp eyes catching the details of the floral pattern. A jolt of recognition strikes him. He stammers, asking if this embroidery is her work. Lily confirms it, puzzled by his intensity. Louis presses further, pointing out a specific detail. The upper right petal of the flower is shaded differently. Lily brightens, explaining her technique with pride. She uses a slightly darker thread for that specific petal to create a three-dimensional effect, a signature touch she developed herself. The revelation hits Louis with the force of a physical blow. He stares at the handkerchief, his mind racing back to the gifts he received in the past, gifts he believed came from his sister, Martha. He asks, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion, if she has ever made an embroidered handkerchief for someone before. Lily, innocent of the turmoil she has ignited, replies that she has. She clarifies that every piece she has made so far was handed over to Lady Martha at her request. Louis realizes the depth of the deception. The sister he adored, the sister he thought supported him with thoughtful gifts, had been stealing the credit for his wife's labor all along. He feels the ground beneath his emotional world crumble. Overwhelmed, Louis turns away, announcing he needs to rest by the stairs. He walks unsteadily, his small body heavy with the weight of betrayal. He needs distance, a moment to process the shattering of his family image without alerting Lily to his internal collapse. Lily watches him go, concerned by his wobble but unaware of the cause. She assumes he is simply unwell. Returning to her work, she finishes the handkerchief, admiring the final product. She deems it her best work yet, though a pang of sadness strikes her as she realizes that, in the end, Martha will likely be the one to present it to him. A maid interrupts her solitude, delivering a summons. The High Lady Albina and Lady Martha require her presence immediately. Lily follows the maid, dread pooling in her stomach. She enters the drawing room where the two women wait, their expressions unreadable masks of superiority. Albina begins without preamble, stating that under the current circumstances, the turbulent weather blocking the nights from the forest and the rumors of the witch's curse, it is unlikely Louis will ever return. She frames the search as a useless endeavor, her voice dripping with disdain for the night's failure. Albina slides a document across the table. It is a divorce paper. She commands Lily to sign it, declaring that she is no longer needed. Lily stares at the document, the words blurring before her eyes. She recoils, refusing to accept this dictate. She argues that there is still a chance Louis will return. Albina scoffs, her patience thinning. Martha smirks, enjoying the spectacle of Lily's distress. Lily's mind races, connecting the dots. Lord Louis is a national hero. His disappearance on a mission would compel the state to offer a massive financial compensation to his next of kin. If they divorce her now, the money goes to the family, to Albina and Martha. If she remains his wife, the compensation belongs to her. The realization solidifies her resolve. For the first time, she understands that their cruelty is not just born of malice, but of greed. They do not care about Louis's life, they care only about the gold his death would bring. Lily stands her ground, her voice gaining strength. She refuses to sign. She declares that even if their marriage has been won in name only, she wants to try living in harmony from now on. She wants to see him again, to clear the misunderstandings, to let him know that Leah is actually her. The declaration sends Martha into a rage. She screams at Lily, calling her insolent, demanding she sign immediately. Martha accuses Lily of clinging to Louis for the money, a projection of her own avarice. Suddenly, a small object flies through the air, striking Martha. She shrieks, startled and confused, looking around for the assailant. "Who did that?" she demands. Lily, equally confused, spots Louis in the corner. He stands vigilant, having launched the distraction to protect his wife. Martha, failing to identify the source, pivots to a new strategy. She feigns a gasp of horror, clutching her hand. She announces that her precious blue diamond ring is missing. Martha spins a narrative instantly. She claims she was wearing it after lunch, took it off in her room, and now it is gone. She points an accusing finger at Lily, stating that Lily was the only person who entered her room to place the flowers. She brands Lily a thief. Albina, catching on to the scheme, orders an immediate search. Martha directs the servants to search the attic, Lily's room, claiming the ring must be hidden there. It is a setup. If the ring is found in Lily's possession, she will be branded a criminal and forced to divorce in disgrace. Lily trembles, trapped in the web of lies. She knows she is innocent, but she also knows the evidence will be fabricated. The servants rush off to search, leaving Lily alone with her accusers. Martha gloats, whispering that Lily is finished, that she should have just signed the papers. Minutes later, the servants return, their faces pale. They report that they searched every corner of the attic but found nothing. Martha's smug expression falters. She demands to know what happened, insisting it must be there. The plan is unraveling. One of the servants points to a corner of the drawing room. There's something sparkling over there. All eyes turn. The blue diamond ring lies on the floor, in plain sight, far from the attic. Louis, in his small form, had managed to retrieve it, likely from where Martha had planted it or from her person, and exposed it before the search could frame Lily. The servant suggests that Lady Martha simply misplaced it. Martha turns a furious red, humiliated by her own incompetence and the failure of her plot. She glares at Lily, vowing revenge, but the immediate threat is neutralized. Albina, maintaining her icy composure despite the setback, dismisses everyone. Everyone, return to your duties, except for Lily. The room clears, leaving Lily alone with the matriarch. Albina drops all pretense. She abandons the theft accusation and returns to the core demand. She is not asking for an opinion, she is giving an order. Sign the divorce papers immediately. Lily, emboldened by the recent victory and her unwavering love for Louis, refuses again. No, I won't. Her defiance cracks Albina's mask. The older woman screams, "Since when did you start speaking in that tone?" She slams her hand on the table, her composure shattered. She admits, in her anger, that this has nothing to do with money, a blatant lie that only confirms Lily's suspicions. Albina's face twists into a visage of pure greed and hatred. She rants about the money, revealing that she was released from her own financial constraints sooner than expected and needs the compensation. Lily listens, her heart hardening. She sees clearly now. They desire money so much that they would frame her for theft, force a divorce, and capitalize on their son's presumed death. She wonders if they fear that if she left before the divorce was finalized, the money would be sent directly to her. The depths of their depravity leave her stunned. Albina, realizing she has lost control of the narrative, dismisses Lily for the day, ordering her to return to her room. Lily leaves, her mind reeling. She steps into the hallway, looking around for the small silver figure that saved her. "Has he already left the room?" she whispers. She calls out his name softly. She stops, a terrifying thought seizing her. Louis must have been listening. He must have realized by now that she is the real Lily. He has discovered the true faces of his mother and sister, the people he trusted implicitly. He has seen them prioritize his death money over his safety. Lily leans against the wall, her breath catching. Was the shock too much for him? Is he angry that she deceived him by pretending to be a maid? She gazes into the empty corridor, the silence heavy with unanswered questions. She wonders what is on his mind right now, where he has gone, and if he will ever return to her. The fear that he might disappear forever because of this revelation grips her heart, leaving her standing alone in the shadows of the mansion that has become a prison of lies. Lily awakens with a start, her body jolting upright in the bed as her eyes widen in bewilderment. Perched atop the soft folds of the duvet sits a small, fluffy hamster, gazing up at her with undeniable sentience. She stares at the creature, her mind racing to process the revelation that Lord Louis, her husband, has not vanished into the ether but has remained by her side in this diminutive form. The hamster, Louis, admits he concealed himself, fearing discovery by his mother or sister, yet he lingered, unable to abandon the room entirely. Lily's hands tremble slightly as she brings them to her chest, guilt washing over her features as she realizes she failed to recognize him sooner. She bows her head, her voice thick with remorse, apologizing for her ignorance and the harsh treatment she unwittingly bestowed upon him while believing he was merely a common animal. Louis, maintaining a stoic posture despite his rodent form, dismisses her apology, insisting the fault lies not with her perception but with his own silence. He confesses that he, too, labored under a profound misunderstanding, believing the lies fed to him by his family without ever seeking the truth from her directly. He acknowledges his complicity in their estrangement, his small paws resting on his chest as he accepts responsibility for his willful blindness. The air in the room grows heavy with shared regret as they peel back the layers of deception that have defined their marriage. Louis urges her to recount everything that transpired since her arrival at the estate, seeking to bridge the chasm of ignorance between them. Lily recounts her history, and as she speaks, a sharp pang tightens Louis's chest. He probes the foundation of their union, asking if she knew their marriage was strictly contractual. Lily recoils, her expression crumbling into confusion. Louis explains the narrative he was fed, that the union was a mutual agreement between families to avoid real matrimony, granting them freedom and exempting them from bearing children. Lily vehemently denies this, her hands clenching the bedsheets as she declares she entered the household believing she would be his genuine wife. The revelation strikes Louis with the force of a physical blow. He realizes that not only was the marriage a sham in his mind, but his family had also deliberately kept Lily in the dark. Seeking to excise the final thorn of doubt, Louis asks if the rumors of her rejecting him were true. He recalls his sister claiming Lily found him unacceptable, but Lily's face flushes with indignation as she refutes the accusation, branding it a fabrication. Louis watches her, his heart lightening as the anxiety that plagued him begins to dissipate. He observes the sincerity in her eyes, realizing her feelings run deeper than mere duty, though she hesitates to fully voice the depths of her affection, fearing the vulnerability it entails. The conversation shifts to the recent incident with the ring. Louis confirms he placed Lady Martha's ring atop the cabinet, a silent act of intervention. Lily nods, explaining she witnessed Martha hiding the jewelry and, sensing a trap, moved it to safety. They piece together the conspiracy regarding the handkerchiefs. Louis reveals his sister had gifted him handkerchiefs with intricate embroidery, claiming them as her own handiwork. However, upon seeing Lily's embroidery, he recognized the unique style immediately, confirming Martha had stolen credit for Lily's labor. This realization served as the catalyst for his awakening, proving his sister's duplicity. Lily bows her head, thanking him for his intervention, but Louis deflects the gratitude, his thoughts consumed by the injury she sustained. He laments that his search for the truth resulted in her pain, blaming his mother's cruelty for the violence Lily endured. A solemnity overtakes him as he suggests the unthinkable, divorce. He argues that severing ties is the only way to protect her from the toxicity of his family, offering himself as a sacrifice to ensure her safety. He bows deeply in his hamster form, offering a formal apology on behalf of his mother and sister for the cruelty she suffered. Lily's reaction is immediate and visceral. She rejects the notion of divorce, her voice rising in protest. Louis, misinterpreting her refusal, stammers that she should take the financial compensation and flee, believing her hesitation stems from practical concerns. Lily cuts him off, her face flushing crimson as she declares her desire to remain his wife, not for money, but for him. The declaration hangs in the air, leaving Louis stunned and blushing beneath his fur. An awkward but warm silence settles over them before Louis, regaining his composure, gently suggests she rest. Left alone with her thoughts, Lily admonishes herself for her boldness, her face burying into her hands. Yet, her mind wanders to the darker currents swirling around them. She questions the logic behind Martha's frame-up and the embroidery lies, sensing a deeper, more malicious intent. Suddenly, voices drift from the hallway, snapping her to attention. She recognizes the tones of Albina and Martha. Sensing an opportunity, the hamster scurries to the door, pressing his ear against the wood to eavesdrop. In the hallway, Albina and Martha discuss their scheme with chilling casualness. They mock Lily's obedience, confident she will sign the divorce papers without resistance. They reveal they specifically chose her from a weak family to ensure she would be a pliable pawn. Louis listens, horrified, as they detail their plan to discard her the moment the divorce is finalized. Their cruelty is palpable, discussing her disposal as if she were refused. A flashback seizes Louis, transporting him back to his childhood, standing before them as a 7-year-old boy who had just lost his mother. He remembers Albina's welcoming smile and Martha's friendly greeting, a facade that masked their predatory nature. He recalls how they encouraged him to join the knighthood, not out of pride, but to remove him from the estate so they could usurp his authority. He realizes his gratitude for their care was misplaced. They viewed him only as an obstacle to the family fortune. Back in the present hallway, the women celebrate Louis's disappearance as a stroke of luck, drooling over the massive financial compensation granted by the royal palace. Martha complains that his death was too slow, revealing their impatience for him to die so the headship would transfer to Albina. They lament the existence of his will, which complicated their takeover, and resolve that forcing Lily to divorce is the final key to securing the estate and money. Louis, trembling with rage and heartbreak, accepts the total betrayal. He never had a family, only parasites waiting for him to perish. The door opens and a maid ushers Lily into the room. Louis, watching from the shadows, experiences a jolt of recognition. He stares at Lily, his mind connecting the dots. The woman he knew as Leah is in fact his wife Lily. The realization crashes over him. The person he felt drawn to was his wife all along. He watches her stand before his enemies, internally vowing to protect her. He contemplates that perhaps letting her go would be safer, but Lily's internal monologue cuts through the despair. She has no intention of divorcing him. Overwhelmed by her loyalty, Louis feels a surge of unworthiness mixed with profound relief. He resolves that he cannot let her go, his determination hardening. The scene shifts to the following morning in the kitchen. The chef presents a lavish meal to Lily, informing her that orders were given to serve her normal food henceforth. Lily stares at the tray, confused by the sudden shift from starvation to sustenance. Back in the room, Louis watches the food with narrowed eyes. He knows his mother and sister too well to trust this sudden benevolence. As the steam rises from the dishes, a dark suspicion takes root in his mind. The food is likely poisoned. The atmosphere in the dining chamber hung heavy with suspicion as Lily stared down at the meal placed before her, the steam rising from the bread and soup mocking her anxiety. Despite the gnawing hunger in her stomach, she hesitated, acutely aware that while fasting had its consequences, ingesting poison would result in a far more immediate and permanent end. Before she could reach for a utensil, the small, rotund form of Lord Louis, currently trapped in the body of a hamster, stepped forward with grim determination. He declared his intention to act as the poison taster, prioritizing her safety above his own precarious existence. Lily recoiled at the suggestion, her protective instincts flaring as she argued that if anyone had to risk their life, it should be her, not him. She questioned what she would do if he were harmed, her voice trembling with genuine fear for his safety. Louis, however, remained resolute in his duty as a husband, his small paws gripping a piece of food as he chided her for even suggesting she take the risk. He reasoned that if his wife were to die of poisoning while he was incapacitated in this small form, the resulting catastrophe would be unbearable for him to imagine. As he stuffed his cheeks with the food, testing its safety, Lily watched with bated breath, her hands clasped against her chest in a silent prayer. The tension broke when Louis swallowed and announced that the food was merely ordinary fare, devoid of any toxic tampering. He continued to eat with vigor, leaving Lily to exhale a sigh of profound relief, though her worry did not fully dissipate. Louis cautioned her that despite the safety of this meal, they could not afford to lower their guard, suspecting that this reprieve might be part of a larger, more nefarious scheme. As Louis continued to feast, Lily noticed something that shattered the serious mood. Small crumbs of egg clung to his furry cheek, a stark contrast to his grave tone. She found the sight overwhelmingly adorable, her heart softening despite the danger surrounding them. Louis, meanwhile, internalized the situation, analyzing the behavior of his captors. He knew he had challenged his mother and sister, and their anger should have been swift and brutal, yet they served him ordinary food. He deduced that a hidden motive lurked behind this unnatural calmness. His train of thought was interrupted when Lily leaned in, apologizing as she reached out to wipe the crumbs from his face. Louis froze, instructing her to hold still, but Lily, entranced by the texture of his fur, found herself unable to stop at just cleaning him. She began to rub and stroke his cheek, the tactile sensation proving too tempting to resist. Louis, flustered and physically sensitive in his animal form, stammered and laughed, the sensation tickling him intensely. Lily indulged in the moment, thinking he would never know she was doing it for her own enjoyment, until Louis explicitly demanded she stop, his dignity momentarily compromised. Time began to drift by in an eerie tranquility. Contrary to Lily's darkest fears, she did not encounter the hostile Lady Albina or Lady Martha. Days bled into one another, marked only by the regular delivery of nutritious meals and the unprecedented freedom to bathe. Lily's physical condition improved significantly, her skin regained its luster and her health returned, bolstering her strength. However, Louis viewed this period of peace with increasing skepticism, finding the silence more unsettling than direct abuse. He observed Lily cleaning the room herself, realizing that while their physical treatment had improved, the fundamental captivity remained unchanged. He understood that his mother and sister had not developed sudden benevolence. Rather, they were plotting. Determined to end this stalemate, Louis focused his mind on the root of their predicament, the curse. He knew he had to break the witch's magic quickly to stop his family's machinations. Lily, feeling the weight of her own helplessness, apologized for her inability to contribute, noting that she could not access the royal library to research a cure. She lamented that they were prisoners, unable to leave freely, leaving them with no alternative solutions. Louis suddenly recalled a fragmented memory from the day he was cursed, a detail that had previously eluded him. He remembered the witch's specific condition. She would return him to his original state if he fulfilled her wish. This revelation sparked a new line of inquiry for the pair. If they could decipher the witch's desire, they held the key to breaking the spell. Lily questioned the plausibility of such a task, wondering what a powerful magic user could possibly want from a man trapped in the body of a small rodent. Lewis analyzed the witch's appearance in his memory, recalling a thin woman in black, approximately 40 years of age, with messy hair. He reasoned that since she did not demand material wealth or jewelry, her desire was likely more esoteric. Lily, recalling folklore she had heard, suggested a darker possibility. Rumors existed of witches consuming the blood of young women to maintain eternal youth. She theorized that the witch's youthful appearance relative to the century-old legends of the forest might be sustained by such sacrifices. Misunderstanding the implications of her own deduction, Lily resolved that they might need to offer a sacrifice. Before Lewis could process the thought, she clarified that she intended to offer herself. Lewis reacted with visceral horror, his small body trembling as he vehemently rejected the idea. He shouted that he would never allow her to be a sacrifice, regardless of the witch's demands. He declared with absolute finality that he would rather remain in his cursed animal form forever than trade her life for his humanity. Lily was struck by the intensity of his devotion, her heart swelling as he insisted that his current form wasn't so terrible if it meant he could stay by her side. She felt herself falling deeper in love with him, questioning if he even realized the weight of his romantic declarations. Lewis, however, pragmatically added that his return was necessary to protect her life, not just for his own sake. The tender moment was shattered by a sharp knock at the door. A maid announced that Lady Martha requested Lily's immediate presence. Lewis realized instantly that the enemy had finally made their move. Unwilling to be separated from her in this critical moment, he demanded Lily take him with her. Lily quickly scooped him up and slipped him into the pocket of her dress, warning him that it might be uncomfortable but asking him to endure it for the sake of staying together. She opened the door to find herself escorted not to a torture chamber or interrogation room, but to a lavish bathing quarter. The maid, Glinda, stood with an imperious expression, ordering Lily to bathe immediately. Lily was confused. Usually, she was only permitted to bathe using the dirty, used water left over after the servants had finished, and certainly not in the middle of the day. The situation was further complicated by the fact that Lord Lewis was currently hiding in her pocket. Panic set in as Lily realized she could not undress without revealing him or, worse, exposing him to the bathwater. Glinda, impatient and suspicious, demanded to know why Lily was hesitating and ordered her to hurry. Trapped by the maid's scrutiny, Lily realized she had no choice but to trust Lewis to manage the situation and proceeded with the command. Lily managed to extract Lewis unseen and place him in a basket with her clothes as she entered the bath. Once she was finished and toweling off, her mind raced with paranoia. She wondered what the ultimate goal of this grooming was, fearing they would force her to wear the gaudy villain's makeup she had been subjected to in the past. Glinda interrupted her thoughts, ordering her to dry her hair and proceed to the next room. As the door slammed shut, Lily turned her attention to the basket where Lewis was hiding. She asked if he was okay, only to find him curled into a tight, trembling ball, desperately shielding his eyes. Lewis, retaining his human sensibilities and honor, was fighting a desperate internal battle to avoid looking at his naked wife. He stammered that he was fine but urged her to take her time dressing, determined not to peek until she was fully covered. Lily, misunderstanding his curled-up posture as fear or sickness, tried to reassure him, but Lewis insisted she confirm when she was completely finished. Lily found his reaction incredibly pure and endearing, realizing he was far more innocent than she had expected. She teased him slightly, announcing she was heading out, which caused Lewis to shout in a flustered panic, questioning if she was truly done. He mentally chastised himself, the hero of the country, for being too shy to even look at his own wife. When Lily finally emerged from the dressing room, she was not clad in rags or clownish makeup, but in a stunning, high-quality gown. The maid, Glinda, informed her that she would go summon Lady Martha and instructed Lily to wait. Lily, seizing the moment of privacy, called out to Lewis, signaling that it was safe to emerge. Lewis peeked out from the pile of clothes, his eyes widening as he took in her appearance. The dress was beautiful, a stark departure from her usual treatment, and Lewis immediately sensed a trap. He commented on the dress, asking why she was wearing it, but Lily was just as clueless. Lewis, refusing to be left behind again, leaped from his hiding spot and latched onto the voluminous folds of her skirt. He reasoned that he could hide within the fabric and stay close to her without being detected. Lily worried that his weight might cause the dress to pull or that he might fall when she moved, but Louis assured her he would be fine. From his vantage point on her dress, he whispered a genuine compliment, telling her she looked amazing. Lily blushed, thanking him, just as the door creaked open to reveal Lady Martha. Lady Martha swept into the room, her eyes scanning Lily with a critical, yet satisfied sneer. She noted that the appearance was not bad, before cutting straight to the heart of the matter. She asked Lily one final time if she still insisted on refusing to divorce Louis. Lily stood her ground, answering with a firm affirmative that she would not divorce him. Martha let out a cold, mocking laugh, seemingly pleased by the defiance. She revealed that she had devised a great idea to force the divorce upon her. Martha leaned in, her voice dripping with malice as she explained the plan. Lily simply needed to commit adultery. Lily gasped, horrified by the suggestion. Martha continued, explaining that she had arranged for a partner, the second son of a noble, a poor man desperate for affection whom no woman had ever noticed. She had manipulated this man, telling him that Lily was madly in love with him, enticing him to come without hesitation. The realization hit Lily with the force of a physical blow. The nutritious food, the baths, the skin treatments, and the beautiful dress, it had all been a calculated preparation for this exact moment. They had groomed her not out of kindness, but to make her an appealing target for a framed infidelity scandal, thereby forcing the divorce. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, and a large shadow fell across the room. A voice, trembling with grotesque anticipation, asked if he could enter. Lord Durham stepped into the light, his face flushed with delusion and lust. He addressed Lily, believing the lies Martha had fed him, expressing his joy that she supposedly held such deep feelings for him. He breathed heavily, his eyes fixed on her with an unsettling intensity, declaring that he would shower her with love. Lily stood frozen, facing a crisis that physical strength could not solve, her mind racing for an escape as the traps snapped shut around her. The atmosphere in the room shattered into panic as Lily stood frozen, the realization of her stepsister's scheme closing in around her. Her breath hitched, the desperate need to escape warring with her lack of options, while the small, frantic form of Lord Louis screamed at her to run. He urged her into motion just as a voice roared for them to stop immediately, the sound of pursuit echoing dangerously close. Lily scrambled, her elegant dress rustling violently as she navigated the corridors, narrowly avoiding the servants whom Lady Martha had dismissed, leaving the hallways fortuitously empty. Louis, acting as her navigator, directed her sharply to turn and enter a small room on the right, his voice cutting through her confusion. Once inside, the heavy door slammed shut, momentarily sealing them away from the chaos outside. Lily collapsed to the floor, her chest heaving, and thanked Louis for saving her, but he dismissed the gratitude, prioritizing her safety above all else. She suggested hiding there, fear pinning her to the spot, but Louis rejected the idea. The mansion was a trap, and they needed to leave the territory entirely. He moved toward a section of the wall, revealing a secret passage known only to the head of the family, a hidden artery of the estate that would serve as their escape route. They descended into the gloom of the hidden corridor. The darkness pressed in on them, and Lily, despite having a source of light, felt the creeping tendrils of fear. She confessed her unease, wishing she had brought a lamp, which surprised Louis. He had not expected her to be afraid of the dark. He reassured her with a steadfast promise that as long as she remained with him, there was no need for fear, a sentiment that bolstered her courage as they navigated the stone tunnel. Emerging from the suffocating darkness, they found themselves in the back garden of the Duke's mansion, the fresh air signaling their successful breach of the perimeter. Louis oriented them quickly, identifying the nearest church as their first destination and noting that if they continued straight, they would reach the city and leave the Duke's territory. They hurried across the grounds, but their escape was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a horse and rider. Lily gasped, nearly colliding with the beast, as a man in a military uniform dismounted in a flurry of concern. He apologized profusely, asking if she was hurt, his eyes scanning her for injuries. Lily recognized him instantly as Sir Colin, one of Lord Louis's loyal knights. Before she could deflect his concern, Colin pointed out blood on her arm. Lily tried to dismiss it as a minor scratch from a small stone, desperate to keep moving. However, Colin, recognizing her as a member of Duke Droll's family, refused to leave her be. He insisted she take his carriage, using the authority of the commander, Lord Louis himself, to pressure her, claiming the commander would be furious if he failed to help her. Louis, hiding in his animal form, initially hissed at Lily to get away, sensing danger, but faced with Colin's persistence and the offer of a swift escape vehicle, he resigned himself to the situation. They boarded the carriage, the plush interior offering a stark contrast to their frantic flight. Inside the moving carriage, Colin's attention shifted to the small creature in Lily's possession. He remarked on its silver fur and emerald green eyes, noting he had never seen such a creature before. His gaze sharpened, a flicker of recognition passing through his eyes as he pondered the animal's identity, wondering if Sir Colin had deduced the truth about Lord Lewis. Colin reached out, calling the hamster cute and asking to touch him. Lewis, retaining his dignity and perhaps a bit of animosity, swiped at Colin's hand with his claws. To Lily's surprise, Colin did not recoil. Instead, he smiled, describing the hits as soft, warm, and comforting, a reaction that bordered on the bizarre. Lily tried to diplomatically suggest that the creature might warm up to him eventually, but Lewis, outraged by the man's familiarity, internally screamed that he would never stand on Colin's hand. The conversation shifted as Lily accidentally replied to Lewis's internal grumbling out loud, causing a moment of panic where she feared she had revealed his sentience. She quickly covered her slip, apologizing for her hastiness. Colin, however, seemed to piece together the puzzle. He formally introduced himself and deduced her identity as Lady Lily, the commander's wife, citing her elegant dress and the fact that she was not Lady Martha. Lily, seizing the opportunity, inquired about the safety of the other knights, and Colin reassured her that they had all escaped the forest without injury. The atmosphere grew tense again when Colin noticed Lily's wound and offered to apply ointment. Lewis, overcome with a sudden surge of possessiveness, ordered Lily to refuse and say she would treat it herself. Lily hesitated, confused by Lewis's vehemence, while Colin persisted, producing a healing ointment and noting its effectiveness. Lewis glared at his subordinate, his small body radiating hostility. Lily tried to take the ointment to apply it herself, but Colin insisted, citing the difficulty of applying it with one hand. As Colin reached out to touch Lily's arm, Lewis launched himself at the knight, kicking him away. The sudden aggression shocked Lily, who apologized profusely, while Colin laughed it off, though he noted the creature's immediate violent reaction to his touch. Lily wondered if Lewis was jealous, a thought that made her flush. Colin, seemingly testing a theory, leaned in close to Lily again, suggesting they test the creature's reaction. Lewis exploded with rage, biting and scratching Colin with renewed vigor. Colin recoiled, exclaiming that it was a cruel reaction, but then slipped up, addressing the hamster directly as Commander. The carriage went silent. Lily stared at Colin, asking if he just said, Commander. Colin, realizing the charade was over, dropped the pretense. He admitted he knew the truth. He explained that while he couldn't normally understand the cursed form, the moment he suspected it was the commander, the curse's veil lifted, allowing him to understand Lewis's words. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. Someone else knew the secret. Colin confessed that he had been teasing them because they looked close and he found it amusing to watch the commander get jealous. This revelation incensed Lewis. He realized his subordinate had been mocking him and enjoying the spectacle of his distress. Fueled by indignation, Lewis threatened to bite Colin with all his strength if he extended his hand again. True to his word, as the bickering escalated, Lewis clamped his jaws down on Colin's hand, drawing blood and causing the knight to scream in pain. Then, amidst the chaos of the carriage, a miraculous shift occurred. The biting, the anger, or perhaps the sheer force of will triggered a reaction. Smoke or energy seemed to shift, and suddenly, the small, silver creature was gone. In his place, sitting in the carriage, was Lord Lewis, fully returned to his human form. Lily gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief as she whispered his name. The confined space of the carriage, previously occupied by a distressed woman, a confused knight, and a small silver rodent, now held a stunned silence as the haze of magic dissipated. Lily stared, her eyes wide with disbelief, at the man sitting where the small animal had been just moments before. Lord Lewis, the commander of the knights, sat before her, fully returned to his human form. He looked down at his own hands, equally perplexed by the sudden reversion, questioning why the curse had broken now. From the lingering magical aura, a shadowy figure manifested, a woman with wild, dark hair and a sinister grin. Sir Colin, witnessing this, recoiled in shock, noting that he hadn't seen anyone return to their true form in decades. He identified the intruder immediately as the witch of the forest. The witch, seemingly unbothered by their shock, addressed Lewis with a twisted sort of praise, commending him for fulfilling her wish exactly as required. Lewis, his mind racing, demanded an explanation, recalling that the condition for his return was to grant her a specific wish. The witch pointed a pale finger toward Colin, whose hand was still bleeding from the hamster's bite. She revealed that her desire had been to obtain the blood of a young, single man. When Lewis, in his animal form, had bitten Colin in a fit of jealousy and drawn blood, he had inadvertently performed the ritual sacrifice she required. She licked her lips, savoring the memory of the boy's blood, describing it as delicious. Lily and Lewis were horrified. The sacrifice they had agonized over had been accomplished by a mere petulant nip. Colin, realizing his pain had served a purpose, looked bewildered, while Lewis bristled at the witch's lecherous gaze toward his subordinate. The witch, unashamed, declared that she hated men involved with women, but single men are always the best. Lewis, regaining his composure, interrogated the entity. He questioned why she used a medium, the cursed victims, to get blood instead of taking it herself. The witch's expression darkened as she revealed her own imprisonment. She explained that she was bound to the forest by a curse cast by Gregora in the past, preventing her from leaving or directly harming anyone. Lily recognized the name immediately. Gregora was a legendary great sorcerer who lived hundreds of years ago, implying this which was an ancient being who had survived for centuries. The witch elaborated on her predicament. She could only manifest before those she had cursed. Her strategy was to transform intruders into animals, hoping that in the ensuing chaos, they would accidentally cause bloodshed that she could consume. She confessed that her magic had weakened over time due to a lack of blood, to the point where she could no longer control others. Gregora's curse also prevented her from verbally expressing her desires, forcing her to rely on these convoluted schemes. Having explained herself, the witch dismissed them with a wave of her hand, telling them to disappear if they had no further business. Lewis asked if his curse was permanently lifted. The witch gave a cryptic, rude response, telling him to, at least enjoy being human again, implying the cure might be temporary because the amount of blood consumed was insufficient. With that, she vanished. As the carriage rumbled onward, Lewis's demeanor shifted from confusion to cold determination. He instructed the driver to return home immediately, stating he had much to discuss with his mother and sister. Lily, sitting opposite him, felt a wave of anxiety mixed with relief. She asked if it was truly over. Lewis confirmed they were heading back to the mansion, but a heavy silence fell between them as they contemplated the upcoming confrontation. Lewis analyzed their tactical position. He noted that confronting his family about their abuse of Lily would be difficult. The servants, the butler, and the maids were all complicit in the deception and would likely not admit to anything. They realized that just as the witch could not speak of her desires, there might be constraints preventing them or others from easily discussing the curse, which explained why no one had heard of it before despite previous victims breaking it. Realizing a direct accusation might fail without proof, Lewis devised a risky plan. He decided he would not enter the mansion openly. Instead, he would sneak in through the secret passage they had used to escape. This meant Lily had to return to the Droll mansion alone to act as the catalyst. Lewis explained that for him to witness the crucial moment of abuse and expose their true nature, he needed to catch them in the act. He instructed Colin to cooperate with this plan. Lily agreed, though she trembled internally, knowing there was no room for mistakes. Lily stood before the towering doors of the Droll mansion, steeling herself. As she entered, she was immediately accosted by Glinda, the head maid, who seized her arm violently. Glinda announced they had found Lily and ordered another servant to inform the lady immediately. Lily feigned submission, expecting to be dragged to the attic for punishment as was the custom. She calculated that Lewis would be making his way through the secret passage while Colin waited to intervene. However, the situation quickly deviated from Lewis's prediction. Instead of the attic, Glinda dragged Lily through a different set of corridors. Panic began to set in as Lily realized she was being taken to a guest room. Glinda shoved her inside and locked the door from the outside with a heavy clack. Inside the room, a grotesque figure awaited her. Lord Darim, the obese noble who had lusted after her earlier, stood sweating and smiling. He chided her for trying to run away, calling it cruel. Lily recoiled, backing away as he advanced. Darim, delusional and fed lies by Lady Martha, believed Lily was simply being shy. He declared that he forgave her for the escape attempt and that it was time to share their love. Lily desperately tried to correct the misunderstanding, shouting that she only loved her husband, Lord Lewis. Darim dismissed her protests as nonsense, his patience wearing thin. He lunged at her, his massive frame blocking the exit. Lily dodged, realizing that if she submitted now, she would truly become the unfaithful wife they were trying to paint her as. She refused to allow their scheme to succeed. Cornered, Lily ran to the large windows that opened onto a balcony. She threw them open and climbed onto the railing, the wind whipping her hair around her face. She screamed at Darim to stay back, threatening to jump if he took one more step. Darim paused, shocked by her drastic action, stammering that it was dangerous. Lily looked down, the height dizzying. In her heart, she apologized to Lewis, prepared to die rather than be touched by this man. She teetered on the edge, her resolve absolute. Suddenly, a blur of motion swept onto the balcony. A strong arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back from the precipice. Lily looked up, gasping, to see Lord Lewis holding her firmly. He had arrived just in time. Darim, confused by the sudden appearance of the missing husband, stared in shock. Lewis did not waste words on the intruder. His eyes were cold, filled with a terrifying fury. He called out to Colin, who had followed him. Lewis ordered Colin to expel Darim from the house immediately. Colin, efficient and loyal, grabbed the protesting noble and dragged him out, leaving the couple alone. Lewis turned to Lily, his expression a mix of relief and lingering terror. He demanded to know why she was on the balcony railing. Lily explained that the plan had gone wrong. They hadn't taken her to the attic, and she preferred risking an escape over falling into Darim's hands. Lewis looked at her, his face pale. He admitted that if she had fallen, he would have become a murderer. Lily tried to reassure him that it wouldn't have been his fault, but Lewis clarified his meaning with chilling sincerity. He stated that if she had died, he would have pushed Darim and his sister off the second floor without hesitation. Lily asked if he was joking, but Lewis looked her in the eyes, completely serious, and told her never to do that again because he wouldn't know what to do if he lost her. The tender moment was interrupted by the arrival of the true architects of this misery. Lady Martha and her mother swept into the room, seemingly unaware of the shift in power. Martha sneered at Lewis, asking if he was finally ready to divorce Lily. She pointed out that Lily was found with another man, claiming it was natural to separate from an unfaithful wife. The mother chimed in, declaring she would never forgive Lily and that she was no longer fit to be his wife. They stood tall, confident in their scheme, believing they had finally trapped Lily in a scandal that Lewis could not ignore. Lewis stood silently for a moment, listening to their accusations. Then, he looked at his mother and sister with eyes devoid of any familial warmth. He stated calmly, "I won't divorce her." The women froze, shocked by his defiance. Lewis continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous, authoritative tone. He declared that Lily would not be the one leaving the mansion. Instead, he announced, "It's you who will be leaving." He proclaimed that it was finally time for punishment. The command rang out with the finality of a gavel strike. Everyone, including the servants who had stood by and watched the abuse, was to leave the mansion immediately, sparing only Lily. Lewis stood before the shocked assembly, his voice cold and devoid of the hesitation that had once plagued him. The servants and family members exchanged bewildered glances, unable to comprehend the sudden shift in power. His mother, Lady Albina, stammered that this was absurd, but Lewis countered instantly, his eyes narrowing as he declared that the only absurdity was their treatment of his wife. He pointed out the irony of their accusations. They had claimed Lily was mistreating them while forcing her to live in a crumbling attic, wear tatters and starve. He asked them, with biting sarcasm, if that was their definition of a luxurious life. Lewis did not stop at vague accusations. He began to dismantle their lies with terrifying precision, listing their crimes one by one as if reading from a ledger of sins. He recounted how his mother had thrown tea at Lily and called her a fool. He turned his gaze to the head chef, exposing the diet of stale bread and broth, and then to the maid who had tried to force-feed Lily rotten cake. He revealed his sister's petty scheme of hiding a ring to frame Lily for theft. The perpetrators flinched as their specific deeds were brought to light, their faces paling. Lady Albina tried to interrupt, claiming there was no proof and that Lily must be deceiving him, but Lewis cut her off. He revealed the source of his knowledge. He had been there the entire time, a wandering spirit witnessing every cruelty with his own eyes. The revelation silenced the room. Lewis pressed on, stripping away the last of their defenses by exposing the true nature of their greed. He repeated the vile words his mother had spoken when she thought he was dead, how she had celebrated his accident as a convenient way to inherit the fortune and rid herself of a burden. He laid bare the reality of her second marriage to his father, identifying it not as a union of love, but as a long con to seize the dukedom. The mother and sister stood frozen, the ugly truth of their ambition reflected in Louis's disgusted glare. With the trial concluded, Louis delivered the sentence. He would not just expel them, he was sending them to the secondary manor in the Borstal lands. The color drained from Lady Albina's face as she realized the horror of the verdict. The Borstal lands were a desolate wasteland overrun by monsters, a place where survival was a daily struggle, let alone maintaining high society status. She begged, pleaded, and even offered a hollow apology to Lily, desperate to avoid such a fate. Louis remained unmoved, his resolve hardened by the months of suffering he had watched Lily endure. He offered them a choice: the monster-infested lands or a public scandal where he would expose their crimes to the newspapers and ruin their reputation forever. Faced with social oblivion, the prideful women had no choice but to accept their exile. As the guards dragged the weeping women and the sputtering Lord Durham away, Louis turned to Colin. He ordered his knight to recruit new servants immediately, instructing him to pay double if necessary to get it done quickly. Colin, though complaining about the difficulty of the task, accepted the order with a resignation that suggested he was used to his commander's unreasonable demands. The mansion, once a prison of noise and hostility, fell into a heavy, transitional silence. The following morning, the purge was complete. The toxic elements of the household were gone, leaving Louis and Lily in the quiet aftermath. Louis turned to Lily, his demeanor shifting from the ruthless adjudicator back to the awkward, gentle man she knew. He apologized for the kiss he had stolen earlier in the heat of the moment, fearing he had overstepped. Lily, flushing a deep crimson, assured him she didn't mind, admitting that she had fallen in love with him. Louis, relieved and emboldened, confessed his own feelings, promising to be a true husband to her from this day forward. He led her to a set of double doors, revealing a lavishly prepared room, a couple's room. He explained that he wanted them to start over, to choose the curtains and wallpaper together, and to build a life that was shared in every sense. Lily, overwhelmed by the gesture, felt the last of her insecurities melting away. However, the atmosphere shifted to a different kind of tension as night fell. In the privacy of their new room, Louis approached her, his expression serious yet vulnerable. He brought up their wedding night, a memory marred by the fact that it had been a contract marriage where he hadn't even considered visiting her room. He asked her, with a voice thick with emotion, if she would allow him to relive that night, to overwrite the cold memory of their sham marriage with a reality of genuine intimacy. Lily, her heart pounding against her ribs, looked up at him. She saw not the cursed hamster or the distant commander, but the man who had returned from the edge of humanity to save her. She gave him her answer, not with words, but by staying, ready to begin their true life together.